You're watching Less Than Epic's coverage of the Overwatch League. Enjoy the show.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to weekly picks from Less Than Epic. We'll be starting off our Stage 2 with a fresh set of scores, so everyone will be back at 0. But before we start into Stage 2, we need to crown our Stage 1 champion. In a race that came down to the playoffs and winning by one single fucking point is Ratted.
Yee! Suck it.
Congratulations, Rad. On to Stage 2 of the Overwatch League. We are all looking forward to an exciting new meta as Stage 2 emerges without Mercy. We're also looking forward to seeing some new maps.
So, the loss of the Mercy meta, we've been going back and forth about how that's going to change the teams in general and who's on top and who's on the bottom. When you review a lot of the team plays, you notice that a lot of the teams that are really good right now actually win because of the Mercy meta. They're getting more reses off, therefore they win the team fight. So it's kind of hard to pick who is the better team right now because it's going to change around so much.
Should be pretty exciting. So as usual with our weekly picks, we're going to have Kinky kick us off with Game 1 from Week 1.
So kicking us off for Game 1 of Stage 2, we got Seoul going up against the Valiant. And across the board, we all chose Seoul. Seoul has showed that they can play really well when it's not with Mercy. Valiant looks like they could possibly struggle without Mercy, so we're all picking Seoul here. We think they're the better team.
On to Game 2 for Stage 2, Week 1, we will have Dallas up against Shanghai. And across the board, we've picked Dallas. While both of these teams are at the bottom of the league, Dallas is most likely the better team. However, Shanghai has picked up some talent in between the stages here, so they could be looking to change their 0-10 record.
I think the Mercy meta change could also help Shanghai here too.
On to Game 3, we've got Gladiators versus San Francisco Shock. Both of these teams have struggled, but unanimously across the board, we're picking the Gladiators. We really just think they're the better team. San Francisco needs to pick something up here.
Going to Day 2, we got Houston and London, and boy, were these games a couple of good games to end Stage 1. Houston taking the first game, and then London taking the second one. Oh man, so we're split on this game. We got two of us picking London, being myself and Nova, and Radhead picking Houston.
I'm sort of surprised that Radhead has picked Houston. However, I'm going on the London train and Radhead. I'll explain that in a minute, but I think that London is going to be playing on a very nice high after winning Stage 1, and they're going to continue to move on down the league and keep cleaning up, I think.
So I was really torn on not picking London in any of their games this week. We'll get to that later. But London, if you review why they won a lot of their games in Stage 1, it was because they would go 8-6 in the Mercy meta with so many reses. And I am curious how they're going to play in the new meta. Maybe they'll do better, but it's really hard for me to say given how they performed in the Mercy meta. So I'm taking the bet on Houston.
I can see why you'd say that, but I do think part of the reason why London was doing that so much is just because they had people that were good at that. They are a really deep roster. I know that they've lost a couple people in between stages, but I still think that with those subs, they'll still be the strongest team in the league. One of the strongest teams in the league.
On to Game 2 of Stage 2, Week 1. We have New York versus Florida. And as you may have guessed, and probably are picking yourself, we picked New York to win this game. Florida is still at the bottom of the league, and New York is one of the top 3 teams, as we saw in the playoffs for Stage 1. That may change throughout this stage, but for right now, New York's got this game.
So that was Game 5. On to Game 6 of this week. We've got Boston versus Philadelphia. Unanimously across the board, we have Boston.
Woo!
This is probably the hardest pick for me personally because I really like Philly as a team. but I don't know how they're going to play in this new meta. They've shown that they struggle against Boston. They got 4-0'd by them in Stage 1. I'm worried that's going to happen again. So I was almost an odd man out, but we are all going Boston for this one.
I almost picked Philly too for the same exact reason. I don't know how Boston and Philly are going to fare with without the Mercy meta, so we'll see what happens. Starting our Friday schedule off, we got London and New York. And again, this is another rematch from the playoffs of the end of Stage 1, and this one is going to be a great game again. And as you'd probably be a little bit surprised here, but we're split, and the only person taking London is the person that isn't a London fan. Nova?
It's true. And I was actually torn, as I'm sure you guys were on this game. We saw these teams play a very hard game. I believe it went to 5 games. But I feel like London's just going to have the edge on New York since they've already beat them down a couple times. I would say it's going to be 5 games again. It's definitely going to be a good game. I could be wrong. I could flip a coin on this one.
Yeah, I've already given my thoughts on London. Might change my mind after this week and when I see them play in the new meta, but I'm just really hesitant to call on London on any games this week.
London's biggest asset is they're able to adapt to what their enemies are doing and then just completely destroy it. We saw it a couple of times. We saw them study enough tape on Seoul to be able to do it effectively. And I feel like that's how London was able to come back against Houston and come back against New York in the playoffs and beat both of the teams that they lost to in the previous 2 days. I think London would be able to do that, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it quickly enough without the Mercy meta. I think it's going to be a steeper learning curve for them, and it's just going to be too much for them to handle.
On to Game 8. We will have Dallas up against LA Gladiators. And we are split on this one again. With me being the odd man out, I have picked LA. The 2 boys have picked Dallas. During Stage 1, Dallas was looking okay, and then they would stutter and fail. And then they'd look okay, and then stutter and fail, and they just never really gained traction. I think that they could be a good team, and they will probably gain traction in Stage 2. But for right now, knowing what I know, I got to go with LA.
This one really comes back to the Mercy meta again for me, like a lot of the games this week. Dallas, if you go back and watch why they lost a lot of team fights, it was because the Mercy meta got used against them. And they really didn't make as good of use of that as other teams. They are, however, one of the best teams for off-meta comps. And I think that Stage 2, we're really going to see a lot of those kind of comps shine. So I'm on the lookout for Dallas in this stage. On to Game 9 this week. We've got Seoul versus San Francisco Shock. We already said that San Francisco is a downtrending team and they need to pull something together, so we're just going to say we're all going Seoul.
Kicking off our Saturday schedule, we got Philly and Florida. And believe it or not, we're actually split on this one. I'm actually taking Florida and the other boys over here are taking Philly. I just think Florida is going to be better in the non-Mercy meta. And I don't know where Philadelphia is going to sit. I know Philadelphia, everybody was expecting them to be great in Stage 2. But I feel like Florida is going to have the bigger step up. And coming into a fresh week, I think Florida could actually take this game.
Yeah, I got to go Philly. Again, just from what we know from Stage 1, seeing how these teams played in Stage 1, Florida just didn't look good. Again, I know they've swapped some things up, picked up a little bit of talent, I believe. So they could come out much better during the stage, but I don't know if it's going to happen week 1. I think Philly's got it.
It is also possible that Philadelphia does better because of the very, very conservative way that they play dive. It's very different from any of the other teams, and it's possible that in the non-Mercy meta, that actually works out well in their favor, especially with talent like Shadowburn on their team.
And Carpe.
So, Carpe's nothing to scoff at. So, yeah, Philly could be way better this stage, so I'm definitely pulling for them.
On to Game 11. Almost the last game of the week. We will have Boston, my boys in Boston, up against Houston. We are split on this one with Kinky and I taking Boston, Rad had taken Houston. I, of course, picked Boston. I'm looking for them to continue to climb. They almost made it in the playoffs, narrowly missing it. Narrowly missing the 3rd spot in the playoffs. I think they can hang around in the top 3 to 4 of the league. They have an amazing dive comp. I'm hoping that they can pull some tricks together with the different healer combos now that Mercy's gone. And their DPS are just amazing. They all do well. I think Boston has this one.
So I'm the Houston guy, and as I look at Houston, I realize that they are one of the best teams in the league, and not just because they made it to the playoffs, but because they're continually improving. Every single week they talk about how they're making changes to how they play. And Jake is obviously an amazing DPS player, but Linkser, that player, has shown that they are as much of an MVP as Jake, and I think that we're going to see that more in Stage 2, and that's why I'm actually pulling for Houston twice this week, especially given how hungry that team is going to be after their loss to London. Big upset for them. They're going to come back hungry, in my opinion, and I bet we see them come out swinging in this match.
I think Houston is a very, very strong team, and I would actually make the argument that Linkser is possibly a better DPS than Jake, just because he's not as much, not that Jake is a one-trick, but Jake's best character is by far Junkrat. I think Linkser is much more well-rounded than Jake is. And nobody's really been talking about it too much. It's not that huge of a nerf, but Junkrat did get a nerf, so he's going to charge his ultimate slower, he's going to be dealing less damage. I don't know how much that's going to affect Jake's gameplay, but I need to see more from them without Mercy before I'm going to fully trust them again. I do think they're a really strong team, though. I have more faith in Boston right now.
And on to our last game of the week. It's Shanghai versus the Valiant, and we've all pulled Valiant this week. I wanted to pull Shanghai as a goof, just because they did pick up a couple of new players, as well as some of their players that they wanted to play were 16 years old in Stage 1, and it was either one or two of them are now 17 years old. So we're actually going to see more of their star players that they wanted to play but weren't able to in this next stage. So it's possible that Shanghai is a totally different team this stage, but without any evidence to really say that yet, we got to just pull for Valiant.
And that'll wrap up our Stage 2 Week 1 picks. I'm looking at this schedule thinking that this is going to be one of the better weeks we've had lined up, with some great games like Houston and London, London and New York, and Boston and Houston. They also changed the schedule a little bit, so hopefully that makes things a little smoother. I'm excited to see some new maps coming up, see how these teams play on different maps. And overall, I'm really excited to see the post-Mercy Overwatch League. Thanks everyone for watching. As a reminder, we will be posting these weekly pick videos every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's 2 hours before game time. Thanks everyone, and get good, scrubs.
Later all.
Peace out, y'all.
If you like our coverage of the Overwatch League, let us know by liking and subscribing. And if you didn't, let us know why in the comments below. Maybe we can make it better. Thanks for watching, everyone.